Hi, welcome back to Grains in Small Places, and today we're going to be doing something at the request of a lot of you guys. So my last video, I mentioned that I would show how we make brown sugar and powdered sugar all from our raw cane sugar. So a lot of you expressed interest, so we decided to go ahead and deliver that to you today. So Matt's going to help us do this a little bit, but I'm going to be showing you how we make our sugars all with this organic raw cane sugar. Now, my last Azure video, I showed you our, this is raw organic cane sugar, but on the bag it says raw organic evaporative cane juice. So I was just letting you know it's basically the same thing, but in all of my videos and all of my recipes, this is the sugar that I'm using. So when I write my recipes, that's the sugar that I'm using. Now, I may make this sugar a little bit differently. I do occasionally buy brown sugar, powdered sugar for convenience sake, but I wanted to show you how you can make it at home in case, one, you maybe have small space or not much storage and you just want to be able to buy one big bulk order of sugar and not have to have multiple different kinds of sugar in your house at a time. But also for health benefits, it's very difficult to even find just organic brown sugar and powdered sugar. And when you can find it, it's not raw cane sugar organic, it's just organic, like the white processed sugar. So if you're interested in trying to stick with the raw cane sugar, this is a method that you can use. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and show you how we do this. Now, I do want to point out it is not going to be exactly the same as commercial sugar. So especially your powdered sugar. It may have just a little bit more grit than what you're used to with your commercial sugar. We don't mind it, but that's something that you have to decide for your family. I will show you a couple ways that you can do it and ways that you can make it finer if you want to, but Matt's going to help us out doing this. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, we're going to be using this one sugar to make all of our other kinds. So this sugar, I did show you in the last video, it is a little bit thicker of a crystal. I don't know if you can see that. So I use this in all of my baking, anything cooking, tea, any of that stuff. But anything like cookies that requires a small amount of moisture, I will take this and I will want it to be a little bit finer. So I'll show you how you can do that. You can just blitz that up really quick. We are using like an old Ninja dry blender that we got many years ago. It is something that can dull your blades after a while. So if you want to use a blender that you can replace or sharpen the blades, that's always a plus. I think Vitamix dry container, any of the dry blenders work great for this. You can try it in a food processor, but I hear that it's not as fine. So to make this just for the more fine sugar, so you can use it in cookies and things, we'll just take this, you can put it in that dry blender and just blitz it up a little bit. You don't want to take it to powder, you're just making it a little bit more fine. So now this can be used in any recipe. If you want to take this and do that with all of your sugar, you can, but I find that this is fantastic tasting and works great in pretty much every recipe. Okay, and then for the powdered sugar, you're going to want to use some kind of starch. Now, we use organic potato starch, which I also usually get from Azure. You can get it from Amazon or maybe your grocery store carries it. You can use organic cornstarch, organic potato starch. There are some other starches that are not safe to eat raw. These two, in general, they say are. They do not add any health benefits, but this is to help keep it to store longer. So if you want to make the powdered sugar as needed, so what I mean by that is you take the powdered sugar and you make it, then you use it in your recipe. You really don't have to add any starch to it, but be aware if you don't add the starch, in the recipe that you're using most likely calls for powdered sugar from, commercialized with starch in it. So your moisture levels may be off. So it may not give you the same texture and you may need less moisture or more of the sugar to offset that. So you kind of have to play with it a little bit. If you add the starch into it, it's very similar to commercialized powdered sugar in recipes. So if you don't want to play with it, or if you want to make a big batch and store it somewhere, you can do that as well. So this is not required, but for storage, you will want to add it. Or if you don't want to have to adjust the recipes too much, you'll want to add that. So generally, rule of thumb, 1 cup of the raw cane sugar to a tablespoon of the potato starch or cornstarch. It's actually the same, either one that you choose. So if you want to use 2 cups of sugar, you could do 2 tablespoons of the starch. But I want to note, if you're using 1 cup of raw cane sugar, when you blend that up, you're going to have more than 1 cup of powdered sugar. So I like to do by weight. So I can just say, okay, I need 300 grams of powdered sugar. So I'll take 300 grams of my sugar, and then we will blend that up, use that in our recipe. If we do have a little bucket of it that we put extras in, so that in case we're making a frosting or something like that and we need a little bit more, I always have a little bit that I can use, and we do use the potato starch for that. So what you're gonna do is put in that 1 cup of your sugar with a tablespoon of potato starch into the dry blender and blend it until it's smooth and powdery. So you may have to stop it and move it around a little bit, stir it with a spoon or shake it, depending on what blender style you have. Sometimes it'll get stuck in the top or bottom. You just kind of have to mix that around occasionally just until it's powdery and the consistency that you are looking for. As I mentioned before, it can dull your blades if you do it this way, or if you're concerned about using the blender for whatever reason, there is an alternative method. You can use a mortar and pestle. So the mortar and pestle, you can do the same exact way. It's the same ratio. So we have a big mortar and pestle. I believe it's granite, and you can use that to grind it up. Let me grab it. It is kind of heavy, but you can use that, and we'll use that to make it smooth. This is somewhat tedious, so generally we don't use this, but I will say this does make it finer. So if the blender does not make it as fine as you wish, you can always blend it, then put it in this and make it a little bit finer. Or if you don't want to use a blender, or you don't have a blender or anything like that, you can always go with a mortar and pestle. I did want to note, with the blender, you want to make sure you do not fill the blender all the way with sugar. You need a lot of room for it to move around and expand. So we generally do like 1 cup at a time for our blender. I wouldn't recommend any more at a time than that. But again, it will yield you more than 1 cup of powdered sugar. Okay, and then for the brown sugar, I got this old-fashioned molasses from Azure. Also, my last haul, we have been really enjoying the flavor of this molasses. I've had some other molasses that we have not liked as much. So this one maybe is a bit sweeter. I don't know how to explain it, but this has been working really well for the brown sugar. So again, this one, you can use the raw cane sugar and mix it and have like a thicker brown sugar crystal, or you can take this, blend it just a little bit, and then add the brown sugar. So we've done it both ways, happy both ways. Again, with cookies, it does a little better with some finer sugar. So we will take 1 cup of the sugar to 1 tablespoon of the molasses and mix that around really good. You can do this in a mixer if you want to make your job easier, or you can just keep mixing it until all the little like bits are all mixed evenly throughout. So sometimes you'll see like a really thick chunk of just the molasses. You want to make sure that you keep mixing that. So when you're mixing the brown sugar, you also need to make sure to get those clumps of the molasses out, that you want to press it. So we like to use like a spatula. We have these little mini spatulas. We like to press that molasses into the sugar rather than just stirring it. So you want to make sure that that helps it kind of incorporate better. If you like a dark brown sugar, you can always add up to 2 tablespoons of this. Will give you, to the 1 cup of sugar, will give you a dark brown sugar. If you don't like it very dark, you can always adjust it and put less. Again, like I said, you can do this in your mixer, but I find that it's not necessary. You don't have to. But I will say we were a little concerned making the brown sugar the very first time that we tried it, but we did a taste test from all four of us, and we tested the normal brown sugar that, you know, you drop a little on the counter and you taste it because it's so good. And we also tried it against the new, like, homemade, and we did a blind taste test. We, like, Matt got some ready for the rest of us, and then we did one for him, so that was all, nobody knew what one they were getting, and all four of us voted for the homemade brown sugar, which really shocked me because I thought I was voting for the packaged organic brown sugar that I normally had. And so I was kind of surprised that the brown sugar that we had made homemade was actually our favorite. It just tastes fresher, I guess is the best way to explain it. So if you haven't tried it, even just making a small batch, you can scale this up or down. You can do 2 cups of this, 2 tablespoons of this. You could even do a half a cup and a half a tablespoon. So however much you need for your recipe. Now, we've been kind of testing out with storing the brown sugar. I have like a bucket that I can store the brown sugar in. It's just a very small bucket. It's airtight. And I used to keep my organic brown sugar in there, and I never really had problems with it getting like hard or like giant clumps or anything like that. Maybe I go through it fast enough that I don't have that issue. I know some people do, and there are tricks where you can put like a slice of bread, or they make those little terracotta brown bears or whatever that you could put in there. But I will say that with the homemade, we've been making extra so that we can make sure that it does not clump any worse than normal brown sugar, and we've not had any clumping. So again, we go through it pretty quickly. So it's been sitting, we had some that was sitting in our bucket for like, I think maybe 3 months now, 3 months or so, and it's still extremely soft. So I was happy to see that. But if your regular brown sugar gets hard and clumpy, it may get hard and clumpy for you. Everybody's like climate and environment and humidity is a little bit different. So, but I did not find that it clumped together any worse than what we're used to. So that was good. So this one I believe would be good that you could make in bulk if you wanted to keep it, like make a big batch of it in your mixer or something like that and keep it on hand. The powdered sugar, we have tried keeping this on hand. This one we've had for about probably about the same time, 2 to 3 months in the container. It does not like clump and get hard, but it does get the larger little clumps, just kind of like the bagged that you would get, and all we have to do is just break that up. It breaks up very easily, and then we can use it. So I also want to note one more thing with the homemade powdered sugar. When you're making it from, you can make this from just white sugar if you want to. You don't have to use the raw cane sugar. It's just, that's the main reason that we are doing this, is so that I can use my raw cane sugar. And I wanted to note, you can see our raw cane sugar is not white by far. It's not as dark as like a brown sugar, but it's not white. So your powdered sugar also will not be white. You may have noticed in some of my pictures of anything that we've made, cakes or anything like that, that our frosting is generally not bright white because we're using the raw cane sugar, powdered sugar, and that tends to have just kind of like a off-white hue, like a tannish color hue. So that is something to note. So if you're taking it to a party or to a function where people are not used to non-white sugar products, they may think that it looks weird. So that's just something to note. And again, it's slightly grittier than like a commercial powdered sugar. So you have to take that into consideration also if you're taking it to a place where people are not used to eating like a raw cane sugar or, you know, more natural type products, and they're used to just the white sugar stuff. So just things to note if you're making a birthday cake or buttercream to take to a big function, that maybe you want to stick with your regular stuff until you find out if this, you know, works for you and how you guys like it. We like it, it works for us, but it may not work for everybody. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know if there's any other video ideas that you're wanting from us. I know my channel is generally dedicated all to fresh milled flour and everything about grinding your own wheat. But this was just like a little special video that we had because we had a lot of people asking us about that from the last video. So if there's anything else that you'd like to see from us, we do have a few other videos out there, like making your own homemade vanilla extract and making your own like yogurt, cream cheese, stuff like that. I have videos of that already on my YouTube channel. So if there's any other ideas that you can think of, even if it doesn't have to do with fresh milled flour, if it's something that we do, I'd love to show you if it's helpful to you. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And thanks for stopping by Grains in Small Places. Goodbye.